Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, excellent.
thank
All
you.
right, well, welcome to a special meeting of the Norwich Board of Listers. We are here at Tracy Hall in the Listers office and also by Zoom. And in at this meeting is Ernie Ciccatelli, Lister, and Cheryl Lindbergh, Lister. There are no people present in the room with us, but on Zoom are Michael Adams and Tony Adams. With that said, I will now call the meeting to order at 7:02. Well, 7:02 is fine.
It is set out too.
7:02 p.m. The next item on the agenda is the review and approval of the agenda. So I would like to note that we need to add to the agenda an appeal of a late filed HS 122 that has been sent to us for um, removal of the late filing penalty. So with that said, that's the only item I have as being added. Ernie, do you have anything else?
No, I do not.
Anything else, Amanda? Excuse me, we have a meeting in place and we're zooming. Would you like to join us? Yeah. Okay, so on a motion then, Ernie,
I'd like to, motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
okay, and I'll second that motion. And we will add this additional item as 7A to the agenda. Thank you. And so, with that said, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so it's unanimous. Motion and the agenda is amended. Public comments for items that are not on the agenda. I don't know if either person there does have any comments. No, and there are no persons present. I have one public comment I would like to make. And that is congratulations to to Amanda Bolio, who works with us here in the Lister's office. She just received a certificate of designation as a Vermont Property Assessor Level 1 on June 11th of 2024. And I wanted to acknowledge that certificate and congratulate Amanda for that. So
Yep.
we'll put that into minutes and she's working on level 2. Okay, that was me. So the next item on the agenda is the reappraisal update. Ernie, in front of you, I have provided the email that I sent after our meeting of September 9th with KRT representatives. And you were there, I was there, and the town manager. So I recapped the best of my ability, all of that which we spoke about at that meeting. In that we requested information back from them. And in that documents in front of you, we have a couple of documents that we should look at and review quickly. One of which is their production status report as of 9/20 of 24. And that reflects that they have exterior measured 1,465 of the 1643 parcels. And as we mentioned at the meeting, we actually have 1807 parcels. So they need to increase their parcel count in this report. The interior inspections are at 460. Of the 1643. So the 460 divided by 1643 comes up with a 28% interior inspection rate. but they don't show that percentage.
What did you say the percentage was?
Well, I'm taking the interior inspected column of 460
Right,
total out of the parcel count of 1643.
right,
And that came out to 28%. Now, they've also got a column of called appointments. And I don't know what that means in terms of interior inspections.
I think it just means that there's appointments to have inspections, doesn't mean that they're necessarily done.
Well, they did appointments. They've already done them. Remember, they had sent out all the letters and then all the follow-ups.
I think you're right.
So maybe we conclude that the 377 it's added to the 460 for a total of 837 divided by 1643 is 51%. Do we see that percentage anywhere?
No,
No.
they had say 60% interior complete.
61%, I know.
Yeah, 61 really.
I don't know how they get that. The entry rate in that other column is 57.13. So I have not, and nor will I sign off on this yet because I don't understand it. So do you see anything about this that clarifies?
I wonder if they're. No, that doesn't mean. Never mind, because I was gonna say, the entry rates, you know, I mean, assume entry means that they've gone into the buildings. And
Yes.
inspected the interior.
Yes, that would be my. So I think I could write them and ask them to clarify some of the information on this. I asked them to come this evening,
Yep.
but they were unable to at such short notice to join us. And I apologize for the short notice, but said we even had a short notice to setting up the meeting. So I'll ask them to clarify the percentages and email us back some information on that, Ernie.
Okay.
Visits, they say complete are 99.21. So if I take 1465 and divide it by 1643, I get 89%. And honestly, the vacant lots, they're not even going to. So I can't really say that I want to count those in. There's no interiors.
Right.
But they can say that, I mean, I don't even know that they're going to those vacants. Some they said they can't find. So I'll make some notes. Any other questions that you can look at this and say you need more information? Or more clarification on this? Because I mean, having an exterior measurement is great, but the interior is what's critical. And 61%, I guess I just don't know how they arrive at that. So their entry rate down at the bottom is 57.13, and I came up with 51.2. That's just not great. I mean, the RFP and the whole plan was 100%, right? And I get that that's a lofty goal, but certainly 50% is not what I would expect. So
No, it's not.
So to that
I mean,
point,
how soon did they, I mean, they have a whole pile of work to finish by March.
that's correct, and
And
that
that's, let's see. November, December, January, February, March, it's 5 months,
Right.
5.5 months they got left.
which goes over to the next document that we got from them regarding their schedule. And so so in this, the sales field review begins this month on the 14th, which is a holiday in most places. The preliminary residential analysis, October 21st, with an end date of 11/4. So you can see, I don't have to read this. As I recapped the meeting in this email, we need stuff ahead of time so we can review it and ask questions of them, instead of handing it to us and expecting us to stamp it. My other piece back to their progress report or their production status report is, I think what I'm gonna do, Ernie, is I'm gonna ask them for a report of those that are not inspected with an interior. And then from that, see if we can't generate some letters to get more interior inspections. Instead of me trying to create something, I think it's their responsibility to do the reappraisal. And they have all the data they need and they have access to it and they can run reports much more easily than I.
Do you think some of the problem is that people are deliberately just not calling back?
Well, that's
Making
already,
appointments and stuff.
well, there were people away. There were people
There's
that
always
reached.
that, but I mean, what I'm a little concerned about is a lot of people that have moved into this town weren't here when we had our last reappraisal.
Right.
A very big portion, actually, this population changed very fast.
Since then, yes.
So I'm thinking that a lot of them don't take the assessment, the reappraisal seriously. I don't think they take how the town, the property taxes are based on, the value of the property and all that sort of stuff, even though it's common throughout the country.
Correct.
I just think they don't take it seriously. I think there might also be something of their attitude. That are the kind of people that are moving into the town. But in any case, I would expect people like that just to simply ignore the whole process
Sure.
and then leave us stuck with picking up pieces when they don't cooperate. And I mean, these guys aren't on top of it either. There's two problems here. They're not on top of it. They have unlike the former assessors we had, these people don't understand the townspeople in this town at all.
Well,
And I don't think that they're trying to either.
and we tried to help explain that when they were here.
Right.
And
I just don't think that we're not gonna hire these guys.
we like the communication. I sent this recap a couple days after the meeting. So it was 9th. I sent it on the 11th.
Yeah.
And we heard back one thing from them on the 12th, and that had to do about the no trespassing signs. It's on your thing here. It says, do listers need to obtain consent before inspecting real estate? If there's a no trespassing sign posted, yes. It's to obtain permission. So
The
that,
way I read that, by the way, it doesn't sound like that there's any kind of requirement, legal requirement that we get permission. It's a smart thing to do. It's the way that person wrote that,
well,
the way I took it. And I wouldn't argue with it.
yeah.
Arguing with them,
No,
I'm
I
saying,
do. And how many of those are there? If those were the only ones we didn't get, that,
right,
could there be a
smaller.
dozen? I don't even think there's a dozen. But, I think the fact that people didn't get the letters, that there were, parcels, people that weren't around and all of that, and it was a short turnaround. I mean, those letters went out and there was a short turnaround to
Yeah, I
calling
noticed
in.
that too.
Yeah, so I think we can try to work with them on another round of letters,
I mean,
just,
because if they, what happens, just hypothetically, what happens if they don't let's say they got 100% of the properties out exteriors, but they have not been able to get into, say, 50% just for nothing. What do we do then? Because they've gotten one more year to do this, not even, well, of course, they're halfway through that year. What happens if they completely fail to do better than 50%?
It's a matter of what the state of Vermont, PVNR and all, determined the quality of the reappraisal to be.
Right, and
And what is that threshold of,
what do we do if they don't like the threat quality?
they reject it. They
Right,
reject the reappraisal.
and what do we, how do we get it clear to them that, there's only so much haranguing and cajoling and horsewhipping you can do to one of these companies? These people have been already told, they're now working a second year, in order to get the original contract.
So I've gone to meetings and networked, workshops and things with people from PVNR, and I've expressed my concerns in emails and
Yes,
in person. So PVNR knows the concerns we have. The reappraisal may be successful. We can't prejudge it.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying,
I-
I'm trying to prepare, what are we gonna do?
Well, there's a process in our Lister's handbook for all of that, and there's stuff that, I haven't found out about that yet to know what that step is. Again, you've been a lister for a long time, and now you've been a lister for a lesser amount of time, but you probably would have been in the same position.
Well, see, that's the thing, I'm used, when I did this before, we didn't have this problem. I mean, there were some places that didn't get interiors done, some people do it, others just, just no matter what you did, you couldn't get in.
Yeah.
But
Well,
there was never like this much.
Well, and in the past, the listers did the work and sat in here and went through and did all of it. Now we're hiring out because these are the approved people and or companies, and now we're working with, and so oh, Tony must be having a challenge with his link. But I just admitted him. So he's in again, so
A lot of wind, so maybe it's
yeah.
gonna phone line.
Well, again, I think, again, we need to spend some time, Ernie, talking about how we want to approach it. I took some notes. I'm happy to email them. Here's the
Yeah.
last things here. And the valuation booklet is down for 418. Again, that's where I'm at with I wanted you to make sure you looked at these documents because I want to get back to them sooner than later.
Yeah.
So my request is going to be that they print a report for us as to who has not had an interior inspection. And then from that, can we send those out and get people to sign up for the opportunity to do
Also, I
so?
think we should have a listserv notice, it lists, a listserv, that lists everyone who has not had an interior.
You want to put a listserv post out
Yeah,
with that?
just their names and say, these people have not, they need to contact the lister's office and set up an appointment or to.
I'll let you craft that.
Okay, why do you say it like that?
Well, I don't know how you're gonna do it.
It's just simple, I mean, Lily posts stuff like this all the time.
But I'm saying is she does because she has the ability to. I don't know what the ability would be to get something like that onto the listserv.
Well, all we have to.
It's a link. Maybe it would be a document on the website where there's a link to that document. That could be a possibility.
Well, I mean, at least the listserv is just an email service. So you just send a letter on the listserv. You can send you can do the listers, just send to the listserv. So everybody who's on the listserv will get a copy of an email that says, these people have, if you're one of them, please contact the lister's office or KRT, however you want to do this, and set up appointments so that your property.
So to get that data, those names, I gotta get that from KRT.
Yeah.
So how they send it to us, it would seem to me more efficient if we put a link on the listserv to that document and said, please look at this document, and if you're on it, we need you to do an interior, we need an interior
Well,
inspection.
I suspect they could actually send you some sort of a file that you could, just take the copy. If they can't, then that's the alternative, but, you know,
I'm not putting names on the listserv. Why, that's a shame name to me.
possibly.
Well, but a link to this document, now everybody knows on the website, they will see who didn't get an interior.
Yeah,
So it works, it suffices to say that it's gonna get the names out there of who we
okay.
need. And maybe
I,
it's,
I do, we can do it that way. I mean, I'm not really hung up on it being in the listserv, but the point is, yeah.
it's a way to reach people, but they may be willing to send a letter.
My biggest, yeah, well, the thing is, obviously the letters didn't work.
Yeah, they did.
Some people they did, but not everybody.
Well, they didn't, I don't think they gave enough time. They got 377 appointments according to this production status report. They had 377 callback appointments.
Right, out of how many?
Well, I don't know that because,
I mean, there should have been 1,600 and some odd letters.
no, because not everybody, they got interiors before those
Okay.
letters went out. So I think the callbacks, if I understand this document correctly, it'd been helpful if they'd been on here tonight. There's 845 parcels and they did 267 interiors and then sent out the letters and did 217 more.
Okay,
That would be the way I would interpret this spreadsheet. They had 514 R2s. They got 171 interiors done and sent out the letters and got another 133. And that's the bulk. Because what do they do now have for commercials? They've done 11 out of 45 commercials. And they got 5 more by appointments, so there's 16 total. Anyway, again, I wanted to recap the documents that we've received back and see if there's something you want and I would want as a
well,
result
there's
of.
another good example. I mean, the entry rate is 40%
On,
on the commercial property.
Yeah.
But they've only got 11 interiors inspected,
I think it's 11 plus 5,
so they got 15,
16.
and still not 40%. I mean, their percentages are wacky.
I agree. So 16 divided by 40 is 35.6. Yeah, I don't know what they mean. They're telling us that there's 5 vacant commercials. So does that mean they're not gonna go in? You know what I mean?
Maybe, then why can't they just put a key, an explanation of each of their, their things?
I agree. Well, anyway, time to get onto their radar because, and I did, as I said, try to get them today, but they could not make it. So we've got a couple things to throw out to them in an email and get some clarification and ask if they'll send us a list of the parcels that have not been interior inspected based on what they tell us from this progress report. Okay, anything else on that, Ernie?
No.
All right, then we shall move on to 5, which is the budget. And I just wanted to have a brief conversation about the budget. In front of you, on number 5, you will see that I've done some work on getting information on the cost of doing a upgrade to the Assess Pro. And that upgrade information I just got it on the 8th of October. Another reason why I wanted to get together because budgeting is going to be kicking in. There's 2 thoughts I have with regard to this. First of all, we got an invoice to pay for our version of maintenance and support for this current year of $5,300. So that's usually put in and paid, but then we've gotten an updated contract to go with it, and we didn't have that. So this resulted in a bit of exchange back and forth between the listers and Catalyst, I guess it's Catalyst, and resulted in them providing a 1-year contract, license maintenance agreement. And it's here and it's unread and it needs a signature, and I've sent it to the town manager for review and signature, or does he want us to do it? The first one that came out was a 1-year with 4 renewals, which essentially was a multi-year agreement.
Mhm.
And that the town manager did not feel good about signing. He wanted to take it to the select board. I said, oh, well, let's see if we can get a 1-year instead, because there is the thought that, we might want to change our software version. So I went back to Jeff and I got a 1-year contract agreement, I should say. It's a contract / agreement. And that's for the $5,300 invoice.
Yeah.
So that can get resolved that way, but with our current budget, if you look at the numbers on our budget sheet here, you'll see that, we're not overspent in any particular area. And in fact, we would have some ability to spend some more money on software and maintenance, because that line item could go over budget. Because some of the others are going to be under budget. You know what I'm saying? So overall, we're good. So in fact, if we wanted to move forward with the upgrade, we could do it sooner than later. And my thinking was we could do the initial cost of $6,000. And I don't know the timing. I don't know if we want to do that in the midst of the work we're doing or wait until after it's all done. It's one of those questions. When do you make a change or an upgrade? Does the upgrade mess anything up, or does the upgrade just make a very smooth transition of data from one to the other? Never been my experience that an upgrade is
Right.
really totally smooth. We have 2 choices. We can either do a cloud host, or we can just do an in-office upgrade. And if we did, so the initial cost, if you follow this one here, Ernie, would be $6,000. If we then did an annual renewal or an annual support agreement, it would be $7,300. And then maybe we could do a hosting of it on another year. Maybe we could wait a year and then go on the cloud and do it a subsequent year. So those were some of the pieces I wanted to talk about. Because if we don't use up our budget this year, we're probably going to get asked to reduce our budget. And I do not wish to do that, because I think there's bigger stuff coming that will not allow us to do that. The other piece I'm asking about with this budget or with this software upgrade is whether we need the ArcView. Can you look at the email exchanges? I don't know what SQL is.
Well,
You read.
I've seen that phrase that.
I know, and I've asked them to define it because I don't know what it means. And whether we need ArcView, not Jeff, but Jason. Jason wrote back and said, if we don't go with the cloud hosting, we need to have a discussion around budgeting for SQL license and possible server upgrade or replacement. So that is a big flag to me to know whether we have more expense to consider um, with the upgrade. I need to get my head wrapped around it a bit more. I didn't know if you knew what SQL meant.
From
He'll define it. He'll get back to me. And they've given some of the background on what the benefits are of moving to has many upsides. So he said, if you move to the cloud, you're negating the need for upgrading your SQL and the server. So there's a trade-off there. You were seeing all this?
Yeah, Microsoft makes SQL Server. So it has something to do, it's the software for the server that we have.
Okay. Okay. So so I think if I'm understanding it correctly, and I'm new to this and I'm not an IT person, but it sounds like AP5 with the cloud, it would negate the SQL and the server upgrades, but be a little more expensive as a result. So I guess we wouldn't want to do this in sections because
Right,
we would pay for something that we
No.
would no longer use.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess that wouldn't make sense. So we would want to go to the hosting by the cloud, which would be the 10,250 on top of the 6,000. So it's a $16,000 commitment. And I would say our budget could handle it. I mean,
yeah,
we've got plenty of room in our budget this year.
yeah, and this is, and how many years would we have to pay that much money?
Well, to me, it looks like the annual is 10,000 and change.
That's 2,250.
Yeah. So we'd spring, the 6,000 would be a one-time cost. And then the annual is 10,250. But if we paid for this and we're in a reappraisal year, do we budget for this for next year?
Right. You don't know the answer to that.
We don't, and I'm thinking with KRT and all, I'm feeling maybe we shouldn't consider an upgrade in the midst of a reappraisal effort. Because it could make the data, I mean, who knows?
Oh, I see what you're getting at, yes.
Because we're taking data from a clunky version of AssessPro to a cloud version. And unless they guaranteed me that nothing would go wrong.
Well, the thing is like the cloud version might be more stable and stuff like that, so that,
Yeah,
and it can handle interfacing with a lot more other types of software. So if KRT has something that's a little odd or something like that they use, or an old version or whatever, cloud is probably more adaptable to that.
right. And you heard Ken say at the meeting that the cloud is like the upgraded version is so much better.
Yeah, you did say that.
And so that to me was an endorsement. It's not his money he's spending, it's ours, but yeah, and also in talking with Barry, the finance director, on the budget sheet we have, she's got to move the Lister office wages down to that line item to give us a budgeted amount now, so that we can come up with something so we don't look so out of whack. I don't know what her I don't know what her reaction was. I can't recall if she was okay with that or not. But with that said, we certainly have a lot of room, Ernie, in the current budget. I certainly don't want to pay for something that we're not going to use for a year, and neither would the town. So this is sort of an introduction to what we're budgeting for. I don't see us changing our budget request much from the 107. And in looking at the the next year's budget, we're gonna need to put out probably an RFP for a contracted assessor.
Yep.
So we get that part in there again, and we don't have a clue as to what that'll cost, but we can assume it'll be $25,000.
When you're saying contract assessor, you mean someone who's taking the old park's place?
Yeah. Yeah, and Amanda's been doing that, but she's got to work in
Right.
Newbury, she can't take it up. So if we had somebody else, a professional, right, which she is, in my opinion, that we can. We'll have to look into that,
You should,
because KRT will be, fading
you know,
over.
see, if maybe she could
Yeah,
be the professional here.
she is now. She's
No, but
doing,
I mean, with a contract and all that sort of stuff.
yeah, and her contract is very basic right now.
Right.
And she's doing all the things that Spencer did. There's just a few hurdles, and then she's doing things he didn't do, which is
Right.
BT Pi. And
Plus, she listens to you. That's
she
the
works
first thing.
together with me very well. We've done very well together.
Right.
So going into this next budget cycle, I don't see us changing much. Though there may be some additional stuff for the appeals, grievances and appeals. Some of that's gonna come out of this budget. Our hours will come out of this budget.
Okay.
So, all right, that's a touch on the budget. So stay tuned and be thinking about this stuff. I got all of this catalyst stuff right here. Okay. Norwich Sharon boundary line discussion. Sure that the Adams is this the item you're interested in, or is it the next one, or just all of it?
I would say that we're interested in all of it.
Okay, that's what my thought was. Okay, well, let us get started and then we'll look for comments. Ernie, on the Norwich Sharon boundary line discussion, I wanted to have a continuing discussion about this. You have passionate views, I have passionate views.
I wouldn't say mine are passionate, I'm a lawyer. I know how to look at this stuff.
Okay,
I mean,
okay,
I looked it up, and as soon as the issue was brought to my attention. And I don't really have a horse in the race. I mean, other than I live in one town.
right. Okay, well, so the fact of the matter is, right at this moment, and I'm gonna update you on a couple things. So I have reached out to the Sharon listers, and I have a meeting scheduled with them. So you're welcome to join that meeting. I'm gonna go up to Sharon to have that meeting. We're gonna talk about the differences that we share and how I just haven't had a chance to talk with them, and I think that's a very good thing to do. They were welcoming me to do that as well, us to do it. And we'll go over all kinds of documents. I would imagine spend some time and sort out anything we walk away with that we need to still work on. But as we know, this is not resolved in terms of the boundary line itself. The other piece that I'll share with you is I've been speaking with Judy, who had done the mapping back then. And Judy is looking at her documents that go back to 2007 and working to see what she can provide as to a reason why the listers in 2007 mentioned, in addition to vacant land reappraisal work, a change for a tax map. Is specific to the Adams parcel and not any other parcel, since there's about 20 parcels on the boundary line. So I'm so confused by that. And so Judy is looking into her records. She still has them. She was very helpful today when I spoke with her for about an hour. And she was actually impressed with how much I knew. I said, well, it's been a year and a half, Judy, so it's not like I just started this yesterday. So with that said, I'm I'm thinking that we can gain some knowledge and facts, hopefully, on the boundary line. There is a bunch of stuff that I've got to take with me and us, if you come, which I hope you do, that,
Oh, when is that meeting gonna be?
good question. That is the 21st. I think I did. I have to look at my,
And what's her name, Judy, what?
no, this is the Sharon Listers. This is a meeting with the Sharon Listers.
Yeah,
This is the 21st of October at 10 a.m. is what I scheduled. Just pick it up. October 21st at 10 a.m. And Judy I spoke with today. We had and she's going to get back to me. She had some stuff. She had somebody working at her house, and it was a little complicated because of the noise. So she was going to look for some more stuff and get back to me on that. So I feel like that's the direction we should go, and I think that we would like, I'd like to still work towards a resolution of the boundary line with regard to the Sharon line, since that's been the one that's come up first. And we certainly know, and she knows as well, that there's probably a concern with Thetford and Stratford as
Yeah.
well. But there hasn't been, that hasn't come up as a,
maybe we have a problem with that in
Stratford.
Stratford.
According to what went on with Dennis Kaufman and,
We don't, as far as I know, have a boundary
Okay.
line adjustment, a boundary line problem with that.
okay,
This is a unique kind of problem. You know, I mean, we wouldn't, it's, if the only reason we could possibly have one, a boundary line with one or two of those others, is because where it appears there is an error in figuring out the boundary line between Norwich and Sharon is close to the corner where those two towns meet Norwich. It's the same corner.
right.
So, but the thing is that the corner is not, that corner is not the problem.
Isn't really the problem. And, you know, Dennis and all, when they went out there, they did a site view, they measured everything, they looked for markers, they documented it all, they put it in a memo, they took photos, they have the photos attached to it.
I mean,
And Galen from Sharon, the Lister's office, was in with Dennis that day. There were 2 or 3 or 4 people that,
what towns gotta bite the bullet and get surveyors on the case.
but we don't have that support right now, Ernie.
I know that, but
Okay.
this problem's gonna fester
Yeah,
because,
and Judy has alluded to that. She said it's a sleeping dog and no one wants to kick it.
right.
And she said it's been going on, well, since 2004.
But people do wanna kick it.
Well,
I mean, there are 2 ways that this particular boundary line issue can be looked at. That the line has been adjusted and moved. Or it was moved validly, or it hasn't been moved. Period.
right,
There's only those 2 options.
right.
And right now, people are acting as if it has been moved validly, but there's no evidence that it has been.
So, you know, it's something that I will continue to work on as long as I'm a lister. And as long as, I'd love to see it resolved. Not sure unless there's a change in the select board in March, just how we will, you know, work on it. But I've got some other ideas about how we could approach it. In terms of getting the select board
thing.
to
If the
agree.
line has been adjusted, there has to be a record. A clear record, not some guy guessing and writing a screed on blueprint paper. Well, actually, it was on a vellum that was blueprinted. Point is that's not, there's been no survey basically going around the entire Norwich boundary. That's what they've got to do.
Yeah.
They could also do the Sharon boundary too. To just make sure as sort of a back check.
Yeah.
So, but there's nothing in the records anywhere except tax maps.
Right.
and tax maps are not, do not indicate that they're not legal documents.
Right, right. So therefore, the surveys, but you gotta find the surveys all along that,
Right, yes.
those
And then-
lines, and it would be.
And, you know,
I just need to go up there and sit with them and compare data, look at the line, what's going on this side, what's going on your side, you know, and talk it out with them.
I mean, what I did dig up, actually what Judy dug up, indicates that some guy working for the DPW in Sharon was laying out a road, or I don't know if he was laying the road out or if he was grading the road, but in any case, it was around a rock or a pond, or there was some natural life object that was immovable, and the road went into Norwich a little bit and then back out. And it kind of follows along the Norwich Sharon boundary line for some distance.
Okay,
And somehow, when he did that, all of a sudden, that was when some people started believing that the Norwich Sharon line, instead of going, cutting off that detour into Norwich, that whole thing, that the line for Norwich and Sharon suddenly had a bend in it to accommodate that. And then somebody then changed put a monument to sort of say that.
and where is that documented?
That was the blueprint thing that Judy showed us.
Well, I'll have to.
If you can afford the eye strain of reading that thing through, and it is really literally is eye straining to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
You can see that it's a story like that. Don't hold me to that. I would swear that is the story, but it's something to that effect.
Well, I've heard that there was some movement of a marker by a town highway department person, and I don't know that. I'm hearing it as a.
Right, but I mean, that's not, that doesn't mean there's been a record of an actual municipal governmental entity permitting the change in the boundary. The
Right.
boundary was set in 1761, and it doesn't matter if people don't like that fact. Okay, because town boundaries got set that way. That's exactly how they were set.
Yep, and and Judy substantiated that they were straight lines, so we've got to come up with how we're going to.
Yeah, I mean,
Make
I got a
this a
copy.
straight line.
I gave the town a copy of this, that the Secretary
Yeah.
of State gave me.
Well, so therefore, I just wanted to update you on the boundary line discussions that have been had, the exchange of information that's been had to date, which is very basic. It isn't like anybody's got something specific to offer to add to the solution
Right.
of the boundary
But
line, but I
here's
think
another thing. Somebody introduced the idea that, well, because the survey says, surveys are only, the surveys that we have in the town, in all towns, are parcels. And those surveys are legal outcomes, okay? And they do, whatever that law says, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about town boundaries.
right.
Because the town, the parcels can go into two towns and be properly surveyed, and they will show, yes, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's ownership of land is governed by all kinds of laws, property ownership. And you can't own land unless you know your boundaries.
Mhm.
So that's why the boundaries are protected, and that's why the surveys are protected, and that's why the surveyors have to get licenses and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So applying that law to individual parcels is absolutely correct. But it's not correct to apply it to the towns, because this town hasn't had a survey of its boundaries.
Right.
Probably hasn't since it was established.
Apparently not. All right, well, I would appreciate you.
There's no record of a survey since the town's been established.
Right. And I just wanted to make sure that you know that it would be great if you could come on that
I
meeting.
know, I didn't put it away.
All right, so that's that. Any comments that anybody would like to make that's attending the meeting?
No, listen,
This is Tony Adams.
Oh, hi,
I just,
Yeah, hello.
oh,
Yeah, Mike,
sorry.
do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think we should go on to the next topic before we give you any comments.
Okay, that's fine. So nothing at this point. Okay, perfect. So next on the agenda is the BCA decision that we have and have to implement. Um, there's been some emails exchanged recently on this with regard to current use. Each town has a current use advisor, whatever. And so I've been in an exchange with him regarding it. And um, the the other piece that I've done, Ernie, is I've pulled all the parcels that are nearby the Adams parcel. I pulled the record cards to look at the assessment of land.
Mhm.
And certainly there's lots of variations, but there's always, as you know, we have a Lister policy that says we will do a site assessment on each parcel, if appropriate. I know we have a document from Phil Deckert back in 2004 that states that. Are you listening?
Yeah, I'm also putting this down, the calendar.
Oh, the date. Oh, perfect. That it's not buildable. I did not make the site inspection. I can go out there, I would imagine, anytime. I don't think the Adams would mind if we walked out there or drove out there and looked at the parcel. Hopefully not. But
Why do you need to do an inspection now?
not an inspection. Well, because we're doing a reappraisal, first of all, and to get our own understanding of it for the reappraisal
For next year,
value.
for next year,
Right. Right.
for
And
next year.
that's part of it. And make sure that if our reappraisal firm isn't visiting vacant parcels that perhaps they should, otherwise they could overvalue your parcel. So again, there's good reasons to get familiar with it. I would also say that if Phil Deckert could look around and see what development has occurred by people these days as to land that he never thought would have a site, a site to put a house on, he'd be shocked to see some of the land that is having building and stuff working.
Okay, but there was an inspection done. They concluded quite clearly this is undevelopable.
Okay, well, Mike,
I think
Mike,
we would welcome. I think we would welcome you to go and see, because it is completely.
Mark, well, you're gonna have to wait, Mike, because we're not having an exchange right at the moment. I'm trying to talk to Ernie on the topic, and I'm happy to recognize you in a minute. Again, we have a policy. I don't know if it applies to this parcel or whether we have a 2-acre site assessment as the state of Vermont requires us to do. So we have to talk about that,
Okay,
Ernie.
why do we not have that?
What do you mean?
I mean, if the state requires us to have it, why do we not have it?
Well, because the BCA decision is stating that because of Phil's email or message or whatever, that there is no building site on this parcel.
Oh, okay, well,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna argue about that, because, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, at this point, with what I'm doing now, I could make that assessment myself, but I would, I'm not going to. I'm gonna just accept that's what it is. I mean, Phil Deckard knows a developable parcel if he sees one, believe me, because from his point of view, everything is developable unless it's not. It's not the other way around. So he would have said it was developable if it was developed. He was.
I understand that, Ernie, but he would have also said certain other pieces of land in this town were not developable back in 2004, and they're being developed with bridges across streams. They're having blasting going on, and they're making a site
Well,
for the house to be built.
what's happened is that I'm not on the DRB anymore, and people are running roughshod over the DRB now.
Well, I don't, we can't go there. I'm working on this BCA decision. So in terms of that, I pulled
Oh,
the,
let me back up one more thing. With what Tim Beck, you know who Tim Beck is, right?
yes,
Okay, he's a big developer. He told me in the early nineties when I first met him, because I worked with him for a little while on some of his
keep going,
projects.
keep going, keep
He
going.
told me that in this day and age, there is no piece of land that is undevelopable. If
Sure.
somebody really wants to develop a piece of land, it can be developed. So that might be where the state is coming from.
Well,
They already had to.
so I pulled the area parcels record cards to look at, to see what value these lands have nearby. And you and I need to look at these and come up with a way to implement the BCA decision. Should there be no appeal within 30 days of the decision, which is what's on hold right now. And or the fact that the BCA decision is a 1-year decision. And that all land in Norwich will obviously be revalued as of April 1st of this next year, because this goes back to April 1st of 24. So those two pieces of fact are relevant, and something we need to keep in mind as we move into adjusting this parcel to what the BCA decision wrote. I today got a letter or an email. Today we got a letter. Well, we did. I say me, but we did. Asking questions about it, and we need to talk about the answers to these questions so I can be clear to this individual who wrote this to me that I answered the questions correctly. So I might need your help in looking at stuff to answer this email that we got today in our inbox. That's another piece to this decision, which I'm reluctant to just jump out as an answer to that. So I've talked about current use and their piece in this, the BCA's decision. And an appeal, a possible appeal of that decision, and or the fact that it's a 1-year decision. That we all know is fact. The other thing I want to mention to you are the minutes of the BCA, the draft minutes of that BCA hearing. And I ask you to do this because there's controversy over what was said and what wasn't said, and there is a recording, as we will have today, of what was said. And one of the corrections proposed is something that you said. And I want to, and I've stated my opinion on the correction that's being suggested of what I said. So I think it's important that you go over this with me and we get this information back over to the BCA. So those were my things that I wanted to mention. So the draft minutes and any corrections on that. So I think it's just a matter, Ernie, of you and I working together to get this, you know, in our heads. If there's no appeal, then we need to get it into the records for this grand list. And I needed current use involved because the way the tax bill looks right now, there's this huge current use adjustment, which wouldn't work if I went in and changed the value of the land to 17,100. That wouldn't work. So current use has asked me about it, and they've sent some information, but they're on it and they're flagging it for the 30-day waiting period. So that's what I know there. I don't know that I have anything else to offer. And now I bet Mr. Adams might want to make a comment. Tony, would you like to be recognized first?
Yeah, that'd be great. I get the sense that you're talking about the parcel that's owned by James Adams, my nephew, and Mike's son on the west side of Chapel Hill Road, those 2.4 acres. And you were talking about the developability and the memo from Phil Deckard. Is my understanding correct?
What we're talking about right now on our agenda is the BCA decision on the Adams property. Whoops.
Which is the 2.4 acres on the west side of Chapel Hill Road, correct?
It is the decision that they made. So the BCA decision on whatever, yeah, it's what you appealed from the listers.
So do you have a survey of that property in front of you?
I've got a whole big file of things, and I'm guessing. Is it the one that was in the packet to the Board of Civil Authority?
Absolutely, that's the one.
Yeah, I got it.
So what's being discussed right now are the 2.4 acres that James Adams owns on the west side of Chapel Hill Road, correct?
That is the parcel we're looking at. Yep.
Okay, that's great. In that case, I have a question for you guys. Can you confirm that the Norwich listers no longer claim any of the 9.82 acres owned by my mother, Grace Ryan Adams, on the east side of Chapel Hill Road as being in Norwich, based on the input that we received from the BCA?
Gee. That's a tough one. So I know that we,
That please.
yeah, could you, because I know that what was addressed at the BCA hearing was 03-040.000. And
Well,
that,
you
that's
removed the
that's the
9.8.
parcel that we addressed, and that one is under James's name.
Yeah, and
Right.
you removed the 9.82 from the grand list of Norwich this year.
9.82.
On the other side of the road.
We've done,
Yeah, my mother, Grace Ryan Adams, no longer is an owner on the grand list.
okay. I guess I'm not clear on the question. I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
Okay, so if you look at the survey, right,
Yep,
you see on the east side of Chapel Hill Road,
yes.
there are 9.82 acres, which are currently owned by my mother, Grace Ryan Adams. Those acres are not on the grand list because you removed them. And now, can you please confirm for the recording that the Norwich listers no longer claim these acres as being in Norwich and being taxed by Norwich?
What was on the tax bill that went out?
There's no tax bill that goes to my mother. She is not listed as owning any property. There's no property on the grand list that is owned by my mother, Grace Ryan Adams.
So the
input from the BCA makes reference to these 9.82 acres as being in Sharon and as being taxed by Sharon. So again, my question to you guys is, can you confirm that the Norwich listers no longer claim that any of these 9.82 acres owned by my mother on the east side of Chapel Hill Road should be taxed by Norwich?
Well, if she's not on the grand list, then she's not being taxed. I don't know the answer without looking through documentation. But if I have looked at a lot of parcel maps, I've looked at all the mapping online that I can look at.
Well, not to interrupt you, but we heard from the BCA and Ernie has mentioned just now earlier this evening that it is surveys and conveyance deeds that determine, ownership of property, and the recording of acreage in a given town flow from those two documents. It's not the parcel maps, it's not the tax maps, right?
Right.
That was the point that Ernie made.
Okay, I'm kind of losing you too.
So
I mean,
you're not looking at it, but there was an email today that we were supposed to answer this question. Can you confirm that the 9.82 acres, see attached map, on the east side of the road
okay,
that Tony wants to sell is no longer considered to be partially in Norwich and will not be taxed by Norwich? And that's one of the questions I was not prepared to answer today, and I'm still not prepared to answer because I have to understand what I'm looking at better than. And today was a very, very busy Lister office day that did not allow me to answer this question in an email exchange.
Well, who's asking you that question, if I may ask?
Jeff
Right.
from what? The cblife.com.
Coldwell Banker, sounds like.
Yeah, that could be the abbreviation.
Okay. So again, my mother does not own any property on the grand list in Norwich. You removed these 9.82 acres from the grand list. We're very keen to know the answer to this question that it sounds like Mr. Batchelder is posing to you as well.
Mhm. Well, he's doing it based on
You've got a survey in front of you that shows where the approximate town line is. It shows the amount of acreage that's in Norwich on the other side of the road is 2.4 acres, right? So on the basis of the point that Ernie made earlier about deeds and surveys being the documents that are the basis of marking acreage in a given town for the purposes of property taxes.
well, what the problem we have here is that the boundary is in dispute, not the parcel. And the law that was cited at that meeting last month, or whatever it was, applies to the parcels themselves, but not to town boundary lines. Town boundary lines are not really part of a survey. If you have a single ownership and you're deeding a parcel to a person, and that parcel crosses a town boundary line, there'll be no mention in terms of the meets and bounds or the size of the parcel or how, whatever the description of the parcel is, that's the legal description, will not include the boundary of the town as part of its description, other than to say maybe the town, that this parcel is in two towns, but it will not use the town's boundary as any kind of description, a legal description of the parcel that is being conveyed from one party to another. Okay, is that clear so far? Let me make sure you understand that part.
I assume yes. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Please continue.
So the boundaries of that parcel that goes through two towns or is in two towns. That boundary parcel is given legal weight by law. But the fact that it's on both sides of the boundary is inconsequential to the ownership of that parcel.
Right, but somebody has to decide how much is on one side and the other for the towns to tax.
But the taxing thing is not got anything to do with, it's got to do with ownership. How do I say this? The ownership happens first and the tax liability happens second.
That's fine.
Well, no, but it means that a person buying a parcel of land that's in two towns, they may worry about it. They're not. It doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter that in terms of ownership, it doesn't matter that it's in two towns. That ownership, that could be, that land, if the town boundaries were moved, it wouldn't change the ownership of the land. If the boundaries are in the wrong place, all of that sort of stuff has no bearing on that town's ownership. Okay, none whatsoever.
The town's ownership or boundary? The towns.
The persons of the parcel ownership by a person.
Yeah,
Well,
I get your point. Here's my piece of land right here. How many acres is right here? That's the survey.
Right.
It tells me that.
and that's the
Somewhere
survey
there's
that
a
matters.
boundary
But
line.
the boundary line doesn't matter.
I understand that, but
Okay, but that's what's important. That's what I'm trying to get across here. Right now, we have an issue where there is a town boundary line in dispute,
right.
okay? And so there is no way to say that one part or another is or is not in the town,
Well,
because the boundary line could be, the town, people could be right. They could be in the record somewhere that the town boundary got changed legally. But no one's proffered that yet. No one's given that proof.
oh, so I can't answer the question at the moment. I am not prepared to answer. I'm not going to answer it incorrectly to that, but I am working on it to get an answer. So figure it out.
So just to clarify, excuse me,
Yep.
the scenario that Ernie was just making, we're now talking about one parcel that does not straddle a town boundary based on the survey. We're talking about the 9.82 acres on the east side of Chapel Hill Road. And the question we're discussing with you guys is whether or not it should be taxed in the town of Norwich. And based on the survey, which is clear to read and it's in front of you, are you planning on taxing that?
This is what he's talking about. This is the 9.82 acres.
Right.
Sharon is taxing it.
So
That is being taxed in full by Sharon.
this is being taxed by Sharon, he's saying.
Right.
So this is following some line, but again, this way our map looks and our parcel looks is different than this. But not to digress, but that's what he's asking about, whether or not this 9.82 acres is being taxed in Norwich. And I need to go into the assessment records, the software, and look at that to the best of my ability to see what I see before I can answer that question. And I did not have time to do that today. And I wrote back to Jeff and said, here's the facts that I can give you, and I can't answer your question right at the moment. I just did not have the.
The implication of that is that you have made this property unmarketable. That lack of clarity makes this property unmarketable and is a severe financial burden on my mother.
Well, I will get
And
in.
that raises the stakes of this conversation, unfortunately.
Okay, well,
All right, but it is being taxed in Sharon. So if you were to conclude that you wanted to try taxing it too, we're going to go right back to where we just were.
okay, understood.
And what I assume, without me needing to tell you, what's the likely conclusion, because we just had a conclusion. So I think it should be straightforward. You do need time. I understand that to consider it, but I hope that your conclusion is not resume double taxation, which we will then take up again.
Understood.
Okay.
I think
I think that's
we need
think
a
that's
little
good.
bit of time, and I think
Yeah,
we'll
yes,
get to an answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Can I
appreciate
ask, I have to go in a second, actually. When you talked about the 30-day period for appeal, are you saying that the town is considering appealing the BCA decision?
I did not say that.
Oh, so
There is a 30-day window by law to appeal.
Yeah.
Just like when you grieve to the lister.
okay, but
Yep.
we're not appealing, and it would surprise me if the town appealed against its own decision. But okay, I understood. I just was trying to clarify why the 30-day period has any kind of practical relevance, because obviously we're not going to appeal. So it would be the town appealing against its own body, which would be unusual to me. So
it
I
may
think,
sound unusual to you, but there, it does happen and it has happened. Not necessarily in Norwich, Michael, but it has happened in Vermont. And I've reached out to other other listers to say, what's the window of opportunity here? And has anybody ever done that? There's a few that have. But you got to
so
have,
are you considering appealing?
I have no decision at the moment. I haven't talked with Ernie about it, and we'll make our minds up.
Okay,
But there has to be support, like you're saying, for something like that, and it's unlikely that the select board would support that.
okay,
So
thanks.
but it is a fact, Michael, and that's all I'm saying. There is a 30-day window of appeal, and there's a 1-year decision in this being made as a 1-year decision.
On the valuation.
Right.
Yeah, it's okay. You can clear, it's really 1 year on the valuation. Since the town's being revalued, that makes sense anyway.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Okay,
All
I need
right.
to go. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank
All
you.
right, yes, same. All right, and Tony, you're welcome to stay on if you'd like to.
I'll stay on until we move on, I suppose.
So again, yeah, Ernie, I'm gonna mute you, Tony, just so we have that. Do you have other points of discussion or anything with regard to the decision? I think I've hit on them. I want to look over the minutes, the draft minutes. I want to respond to this email from Jeff, and then at some point we have to get together and review the implementation of the decision, should that be what ends up happening.
Mhm.
Okay, so those are the pieces that I want to hit on. That being said, it's I'm ready to move on if
Yeah,
you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, all right. Well, that's where we're at.
Is this
So
a copy of something I wrote? Because that's my handwriting there.
that is the BCA packet that we had, and I don't know if that was your copy of the packet, but that's what I found on the desk. So it might have been your copy that you made some scribble marks on.
Oh, so that's pretty-
Okay.
quite clear.
Let's move on to an appeal of the late filing of an HS 122. As you know, these things happen. It was an email that was forwarded from finance office to the listers. I don't know, Ernie, if you had a chance to look at this before, but the individuals got a revised tax bill. They thought that the penalty, when they read the memo that comes with the revised tax bill, was the total change to their tax bill. They thought that was a penalty, when in fact, not all of it was a penalty. It was the change from the non-homestead rate to the homestead rate. As you know, that's higher in Norwich. So I wrote back and explained that part of his increase was to do with the homestead rates, the education rates, and that we would not be changing his tax bill back to the pre-HS 122 filing amount. That is impossible to do.
Right.
So he understood, he appreciated it, said, thank you for explaining, I now understand. And he did want to then request be appealing and waive the $1,700, $1,758.77 penalty. So we can, this is the presentation of the information. You and I will deliberate after the meeting is over for a few minutes to discuss what we're going to do. And I will also mention that I've written back to this guy again to say that his HS 122 in previous years reflected a rental portion. This time around, when he filed, it reflects none of that. So there will not be a split, as it turns out, on his tax bill. It'll all be at the homestead rate. So he'll end up with even a greater tax bill after we make our decision tonight with regard to all of the assessment being at the homestead rate.
Mhm.
So I wrote him back and explained that, said sorry for that error, but we'll get that corrected, and after the meeting tonight, we'll get him a revised tax bill that'll reflect the correct information, so. That's where we are on that, so that's the presentation of the appeal, and we'll deliberate after the meeting, as always. Any questions about that, Ernie? Do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, and I gave you a copy of his emails of the appeal. So the next item is our Lister draft minutes from our last meeting, which was 8/29 of 24. And by the way, we never did give final approval to our July 18th written grievance minutes. So the two sets of minutes that I'm looking to us to approve are the draft minutes of our last meeting of 8/29 and the grievance minutes that were July 18th. Do you have any questions or concerns that you recollect about the draft minutes?
Oh, no.
No, okay. Okay, so can we make a motion then to approve those sets of minutes?
Okay, which sense?
The ones that are on the agenda, the ones that are listed on the agenda. So our last,
All right, I want to make, I want to.
so the 8/29 is our last meeting of
Right.
the listers, and the 8/17 are the grievance draft minutes.
The 8/17 or 7/18.
I'm sorry, the 7/18.
Okay.
You could do it
So,
one at
I
a
mean,
time or both.
I want to.
Yep,
Make a motion to approve the draft minutes of the August 29th, 2024 and July 18th, 2024 meetings.
okay. Thank you. I will second that motion. Is there any discussion?
No,
Okay, how do you vote?
aye.
All right, and I'm an aye, so we have unanimous, and we will get I will get those minutes finalized and signed and off to the town clerk's vault. Thank you. And then the last item on the agenda is adjournment.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by EC. I will second it. All in favor, how do you vote? Aye, I vote aye. It is 8:24 PM. We will be adjourning. 8:24. And go to deliberate. Thank you, Tony, again for being here. And
Take care for now. Thank you.
all right, you bet.